Hemant sir, you can just disable the waiting room.
Yeah.
So people can come in anytime.
Yeah. So we are live on YouTube, Key Account Management, creating positive impact, and the session will start in 2 minutes. Yeah. So
people can come in anytime.
yeah. Yes.
Yes, Irene, we can start the session.
I'm making Niriksha co-host, and she has to just confirm me whether she is in a position to see the polls. No, I'm making her host.
Yes, I got it.
Polls are visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah, let's start the session. Irene?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, a very good evening and a warm welcome to all respected panelists and participants to the Mastermind panel discussion series organized by MasterMyLife EQ Education Private Limited in association with Key Account Management Group, UK, and Digi-Station, India. My name is Irene Xavier, your host for the event today. I know we are all in different time zones, so a good day to everyone. I take this opportunity to introduce our management team, Mr. Hemant Lavanghare, the founder director, and Dr. Harshada Mule, director of academics. I request Harshada ma'am to deliver the opening address for the event.
Yeah. So on behalf of MasterMyLife EQ Education Private Limited, I welcome all the participants, and I definitely promise this is going to be the excellent discussion with the great panelists on board. Key account management, as often discussed, is most important vertical in corporates today. Particularly post-pandemic era, we have seen a lot of changes are happening in the organization, and it's very critical to maintain strategic account for the organization to sustain in the long term. With that background, our students of MasterMyLife EQ Education have taken this initiative and have organized this event. So we again welcome everyone, and let's start this event and let's benefit maximum from the discussion. Thank you. Thanks, Irene. You're mute.
Thank you, ma'am. The topic for today's session is key account management, creating positive impact in challenging times. I would like to introduce now to you Sir Richard Ilsley, Program Director of École de Pont Business School and Chairman of Key Account Management Association, UK. I request Sir to please share a few words about the association.
Thank you very much. Well, you've just promoted me because I'm actually the deputy chair of the organisation, but that's fine. So my interest really is in the relationship between very large customers, very large suppliers, and so to do that, I'm the deputy chair of an organisation called Association for Key Account Management. Now, it's a not-for-profit, and it exists really to share knowledge, ideas, experience, research, and so on, right across the board. So you'll find academics and consultants, practitioners, all are members. And if you're not a member, you're very, very welcome to join. You'll find that organisation online, a4cam.org. I'm also work with a business school in Paris, where I'm the program director for key account management and also strategic partnering. And through that, I run with others a LinkedIn group, which is called the Key Account Management Knowledge Share. And I know many of you listening are already members. We have about 100,000 members of that group. So it's a great resource to share thoughts and ideas, experiences, and so on. And again, if you're not a member, you're very, very welcome to join, and you'll find us through LinkedIn, Key Account Management Knowledge Share. And finally, I spend quite a bit of time working with generally larger international companies to support them in their key account management initiatives, key account management growth. So I'm really delighted to be here today to certainly to listen to the other excellent speakers which you've got here, but also to share my thoughts and experience based on what we're seeing. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. We're delighted to have you as well here. Now, I would request Ms. Shalini Shori, the founder director of Digi-Station, to speak a few words.
Hi, everybody. So basically, I'm Shalini and I founded this organization, Digi-Station, and the organization came into force on 1st of April 2020 as the pandemic was there, just starting to come in across the globe. Now, one of the basic reasons why, and this is basically started at the behest of the key account management, which I had been already practicing in my professional life. The objective of creating this organization was to support customers to optimize their cost, which they may be occurring across.
Shalini, can you please check your sound because I'm
Yeah,
not
there
able
is
to
a
hear you.
disturbance on the background. So if you could just check your audio.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
No.
You're audible. There is a lot of disturbance on the background. There's some noise around.
Okay, so give some time to Shalini and go with the other panelists. Meantime, I
So
request
yeah,
Shalini to take that.
Yes,
before we start, just I
yes.
request Mr. Hemant Lavangare to share a few words because he also comes from a great background into key account management and have worked with multinational organizations. So
Yes.
just a few words before we start sessions.
So MasterMyLife has associated with University of Mumbai from 2017 onwards, and we have launched India's first master degree in emotional intelligence and human relations with specialization in key account management. And today's event is being managed by my students who are specializing in key account management vertical. And being from industry, having spent more than 24 years in industry, so this is my appeal to all corporates present here to associate with us, to support our students, to share knowledge with our students, not only during today's event, but also in future. We would like your participation in our program, wherein you can take guest sessions, you can give internships to my students. So this is how I appeal for industry academia connection, especially related to key account management. Yeah, thank you. So we can proceed with the introduction to the panelists, and after some time, Shalini.
Thank you so much, sir. My co-host will be putting the links for the LinkedIn profiles of each panelist, as well as you can know more about the association through the links if you click it on the chat. Please do let us know if you have any problems, if you have any doubts, do put it in the chat box. Now, also, let me take a moment to introduce to you MasterMyLife, as already Hemant sir has already introduced us to it. And we are so proud of it. We are established in the year 2017 with industry partner of University of Mumbai's Garware Institute of Career Education and Development with the world's first master degree in emotional intelligence and human relations and life coaching. We bring to you a trend-setting panel discussion on KAM, Key Account Management, in collaboration with National HRD Network Pune Chapter, IED Academy, Key Account Management Group UK, and Digi-Station India. Now, coming to the specializations that we have. In emotional intelligence and human relations, we offer our learning and development, key account management, and corporate communication. Whereas in emotional intelligence and life coaching, the specializations offered by us are executive coaching, relationship coaching, as well as child and adolescent coaching. As you can see in the next slide coming up, that our specializations help all of us to choose among what our interests are and what we would want to make a future career in. To know further details about MasterMyLife EQ Education, my co-host Aishwarya will put a link in the chat box for you.
Niriksha, just go to the next slides. On the first
Yes,
slide is
Niriksha,
visible
next
here.
slide. Just a moment, guys.
I think here she's facing network issues.
Yeah, this pandemic is bringing all kind of issues for us. Yeah, we're back on. Yes, as we've already introduced Richard sir and Shalini Shori ma'am, we'll be introducing again. Yes. Now, we also acknowledge how MML, MasterMyLife, adds value to the corporates.
Next slide, please. You have to go to the previous slides, Irene. Yeah, just stay here.
Yes. Yes. These. Yeah. So as I was saying, we need to acknowledge the value addition that MasterMyLife does to the corporate field. Students of MML like myself are skilled in emotional intelligence-based training and test creation, skilled-based training, and have conducted research, live projects on how the pandemic has disrupted KAM and relationships, how it has changed consumer behavior, accelerated the technology adoption, created new B2B landscapes, and a different paradigm. This event aims to address these concerns and more. Now, focusing on the event, we are gathered here for today. The 7 expert panelists include various international and Indian corporates and KAM domain experts, and they will share their collective wisdom on the upcoming global trends, tools, techniques, and processes. There will be also a Q&A session for exactly 5 minutes. So be quick in preparing your questions for them and put it in the chat box as soon as you get them. And put it beforehand so that we can ask them within the 5 minutes. The participation is open to all present here. So go ahead with whatever concerns, with whatever doubts you think what the future of KM holds. You can go ahead and just put it in the chat box. Yes, now this is our first speaker, our expert speaker, Richard sir. And next we have Shalini Shori ma'am, the founder director of Digi-Station. Next we have Aakaash Borse sir, the founding partner of Faber Infinite Consulting. Then we have Chief Executive Officer of Marangoni GLP Private Limited, Hemant Kaul sir. Ms. Bhavna Bindra, the Managing Director of Rehau Soa. Sir Sudeep Sen, the Vice President at GI Group, India. And finally, we have Diksha Deo, the Director and Founder and CEO of IncuSense. So now let us finally begin the event formally with our first expert speaker, Sir Richard Ilsley, who will be sharing with us his perspectives on the key account management organizational issues. Over to you, sir.
Great, thank you very much. All right, so we're going to talk about organization and management of key accounts. Now, if those of you who know me know that I can probably talk about this subject for about 5 days, but we don't have 5 days. They've only given me 5 minutes. So I'm going to give you the highlights in a kind of prioritized order as I see it. It's not designed to be comprehensive, and many of the other speakers are going to give you a lot more support and background. But what I want to give you is the things that we see most likely in an organization and management capacity from those teams, those organizations who are most successful in key account management. So this is what you're likely to see more of the time from the more successful organizations. So 5 key points. Number 1, key account management is not a sales technique. It's not even a sales strategy. It's a commercial or a business strategy. And when you think about it, I guess that's obvious, isn't it? Because all of the things that you do for your customer, all the value that you bring, all the competitive advantage that you bring for yourself as a result of that value is being delivered as a result of all the things that your company is doing, the whole business, not just a key account manager. So key account manager has to embrace, or key account management has to embrace the whole business. It's a business strategy. It's not the responsibility of a salesperson or a sales director. So that's first key point, and that kind of underpins everything else that I'm going to say to you today. Second key point is that you got to have active engagement from the senior management team. Active engagement from the senior management team. And that means more than just senior people saying, yes, it's a good idea, let's do it, here's some money. No, they've got to be actively involved. They've got to be part of the team itself. They've got to be part of the quarterly business review. It's got to be part of the way we do things around here from now on. Point number 3, you've got to define your expectations. This is such an important point. When I talk about expectations, what I mean is, what are we expecting to see from this key account? What are we expecting to see from this key account initiative? And when do we expect to see that? So key account management isn't a sales initiative. So I'm not expecting to see instant sales results. What I am expecting to see, though, is a change in the nature of the relationship with the key account. So fundamentally, key account management is change management. And we're seeking to change the nature of the relationship with the key account, and we're seeking to change the way the key account perceives us. So we're trying to move away from positioning ourselves as another competent supplier. And now we're trying to move towards positioning ourselves as the preferred supplier. That's really what we're trying to do here. So we've got to really to make sure that everyone across the business has got an agreed understanding of what we're expecting to see by when. Because if we don't have those expectations clear, then we're going to have all sorts of issues, all sorts of problems about what key account management is supposed to be delivering for the organization. So it's not about winning new sales tomorrow. And often when I'm coaching senior managers or account managers, they're very disappointed when they start the coaching session by saying, "Great news, we've just won a new project." And I always say, "Well, I don't really care. I'm not really interested in winning new sales. You're always going to win new sales. That's part of what you do. What I'm really interested in understanding is, how are you changing the relationship? What is it going to look like in 12 months, 24 months time?" And by the way, that's the kind of time horizon that we need to be thinking about. 24 months is a good time to change relationships. So clarity about expectations. What are we going to deliver and when? And when we start to think about what does the key account initiative or what does the key account deliver to us, there are 2 key measures that we need to have in mind. Number 1 is share of the customer's business. Our aim is to increase our share of the customer's business. But that's not the only thing, because we could increase our share tomorrow by cutting the price, and cutting the price is not a business strategy. So as well as driving our share, at the same time, we also have to be increasing our margin. Or better still, our profit contribution, because that starts to include the cost of serving the customer. So we're looking for these 2 things to be happening together. We're looking to drive share, and at the same time, we're looking to drive margin. So if you think about it in slightly simple terms, what we're saying to the key account is, we would like more of your business. Oh, and by the way, we would like you to pay more for that business. Okay? Now, why on earth would the key account want to do that? The reason it's going to do that is because we're bringing more value to its own business. In other words, we're making it better off. So there's a very strong commercial argument for the key account to say, look, you are better off commercially, financially, giving us more business. That's the key point. That's where we're trying to get to. So it's not about winning new sales tomorrow. It's about demonstrating how this key account is going to be better off now and in the future because it's doing more business with us. That's point 4. Point 5, you got to assemble cross-functional teams. It's a team effort. So key account management is not the sole responsibility of one person. It becomes responsibility of a team of people. Sure, you've got focus and you've got leadership from the key account manager, but that person has to have the support and engagement right across the business. And the most effective way of doing that is to build a key account team. That team might be a permanent team, or it might be an ad hoc team that comes together from time to time to address particular issues. But it has to be a team approach. And my final point, whilst we're talking about the team approach, is you have to be willing to make mistakes. In fact, you have to be pleased when you make mistakes. What? You have to make mistakes. We make mistakes when we're learning. We make mistakes when we're doing new things, and we make mistakes when we're changing. We're not making any mistakes. It means we're probably not doing anything differently. We're probably not changing anything. And fundamentally, key account management is about change. So I'm always looking for, and I'm expecting to see errors and mistakes happening. Because if I see that, I know we're making progress. But when we do make those mistakes, then we need to sit down as a team and say, okay, not who made the mistake, whose fault is it, but what happened, and what do we do next time to be even more effective? I spend quite a lot of time as a kind of side issue looking at what is it that makes individuals and teams really effective? What is it that the really high caliber individuals and high caliber teams do? What do they do more of the time? And one of the things that high quality teams, high performing teams do, and whether we're talking about business teams, military elite teams, elite sports teams, one of the things they all do is at the end of whatever they've just done, the game, the winning the project, the whatever, they sit down and they analyze what happened. And they look at what went well, in other words, what don't we need to change, and what should we change next time. So there's this bias for positive improvement based on our performance. And this, I think, is the essence of successful teams and therefore successful account management. There we go. 5 key points. Thank you all very much. Delighted to answer questions if you have some. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Really great perspectives to hear from you. Yes. Yes, Irene, we are open to questions from the audience.
Yes.
There's one question in the chat box. Someone can take up that.
Sir, there is one question from Anurag Gar. Do you mean key account management is customer in the company to present the face of the company to customer?
Sorry, key account management is?
Do you mean key account management is customer in the company to present the face of the company to customer?
Is the key account manager presenting the face of the?
Yeah, so the question is, do you mean key account management is a customer in the organization to present the face of the organization to the external customer? That is the question from Anurag, if you can understand.
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, the key account manager is the primary point of contact with the customer. Okay, I think that's clear. So, but the point here is that it's not a single person's job. It has to become a team effort. Okay, it's something that the entire company does. And the reason this is so important when we talk about key accounts, what is a key account in any case? We have to go back to this idea of Pareto's analysis. So generally speaking, the minority delivers the majority. A relatively few customers deliver most of the volume, most of the profit, most of the growth, and so on. And it's those customers that we're focusing our time and attention upon. I'm not sure if I'm actually answering the question or not. Is that?
You are. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You are.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? I guess not.
Yeah, okay, we can move on, but definitely it was a great perspective, sir.
We had one more question. And we actually circulated a couple of times. So we had one more question in that. What do you do when a client says they're leaving the company, or what did you do when you lost a key client?
What do you do if you lose a key client?
Yes.
Okay, so you've got to go through some sort of post-mortem to understand why that was the case. So it's this final point I made where you're looking at what has happened and why has it happened. Now, I would say that if you find that you've suddenly lost a customer, that's an indication that your key account program is simply not working. Because large companies do not exit large suppliers just like that. It's going to be part of their purchasing strategy. So you need to understand what is the purchasing strategy for this customer. Where do we fit into their strategy of supply? And if you do that, you might discover that actually you're not in the right place as far as you're concerned. You might also discover that they're actually going to start moving you out. And if that's the case, you need to have advanced warning of that. And you need to start taking action right now to reposition yourself as someone who really does bring value. Right. So my point is, if you suddenly lose business, and this is not unusual, by the way, suddenly a large customer says, we're not doing business with you anymore, that's an indication that your program is simply not working. You're not understanding the customer.
Yeah. Okay, there are a few more questions, but we can take them at the end. Again, we are open to this window. So meanwhile, let's move on to next speaker. Aishwarya, you can note down this question, which is coming from Faizan.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, the questions are going on rolling
And
in.
Arun,
So we'll come back to the
Arun,
question.
and we'll come back to that. Yeah. Yes, Irene,
Okay.
over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir. It was very insightful and thought-provoking, thinking about expectations and how we need to understand our customers and look ahead. Thank you so much. Okay, so now I request Ms. Shalini Shori to introduce us to herself and her association and share with us her knowledge on developing and implementing a strategic account management program.
Sure.
Shalini ma'am, is your network better now?
Yeah, can you hear me now, right? Hello?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody. So let me start with the introduction of my organization. This is basically Digi-Station. This is a startup. We started on 1st of April 2020.
Sorry, ma'am, to interrupt you. There's still a lot of noise.
Yeah.
But there is no noise over here.
No, maybe you're using two devices. Is there another device next to your...
No? Just a moment, I'll say.
Sure, no problem.
Let's proceed to next meantime.
Yeah, okay. So as we are on hold for now, I would request you to request my co-host to put on the poll so that we can have a little bit of interaction and understand where we all, what our choices are. So the poll that you would see right now would be, how do you manage key accounts effectively? You have 5 choices. Relationship
building. Can you launch a poll, sir, Mr. Hemant?
There you go.
You can put up meanwhile in the chat box till the poll becomes live. Your views on this particular question.
It's live, ma'am.
It's live? Okay, only maybe as a host I can see.
Yes.
Can I go to the poll once again if it is possible?
That may not be possible because I have to end the poll. So you can answer in the chat box.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
In next 5 seconds, I will close the poll and I will share the results.
There you go. So all of the above, yeah. So we all have, most of us have, yeah, thought of that all of these characteristics do fit in for to manage key accounts effectively. That's great. Okay. Okay, so let's move forward. Yes. Okay. I request Mr. Aakaash Borse, who would be talking with us about key account management in B2B markets, to please take the dais forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope I am audible now.
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. At the outset, let me thank MasterMyLife organization. I must say that this is something phenomenal that we have been witnessing, because this subject is very, very important. And as I was saying, that very less focus has been given on this subject. So congratulations for taking this up. Now, coming to this particular subject that we have been talking about, key account management, let me say that for me, by title or by designation, I'm not into key account management, but that is something that I do day in, day out, even without the title. So I would say there is a world beyond when it comes to key account management. So without the title also, you would be performing such tasks for your organization in the future. So that can happen as well. And in here, when I'm talking about, or rather when I'm going to talk about B2B markets, I would take one step back and talk about what my coaches have been talking to me, that there's nothing called as B2B or B2C. Of course, it definitely helps when we are planning or whenever we are working out approaches for different segments. It definitely helps, but then it is something beyond that, what is coined as edge to edge, which is human to human. So whether you are into B2C domain or B2B domain, you would be finally dealing with humans. And when we are talking about edge to edge kind of an environment, the first and foremost thing that comes to the mind is what you should be doing is you should be looking at what the other organization or the other team, the other people are inclined towards. What is it that fascinates them? So when we are talking about this fascination or working out a plan to reach out to those people or those humans, I would go back and talk about, I'm sure many of you here come from India, and I would talk about a couple of examples from Bollywood movies, right? And when we are talking about Bollywood movie, there was one very old movie called as Bawarchi, in which Rajesh Khanna worked out a plan for the entire family to get into the family. So that is something, in my view, if I were to say, is key account management. If I were to talk about for the people who are into my generation or people who are coming from a different generation, that movie was remade where you had this movie called as Hero Number One, right? Or if I were to say another movie of such classic example was DDLJ, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, where the hero works out a plan for the entire family, right? So it's like more about working for all the people. What are they looking for in that family? And when we are talking about such examples, I would rather come to the business perspective of it. And let me tell you, whatever Richard says, I kind of resonate with whatever he has been saying in those 5 points. And my pointers would be kind of an extension of what he said. So it's like when we are talking about a business perspective, we need to understand the entire decision-making process and what is it that the customer or the client team members are more inclined towards, right? So that's where we seek engagement from all. And when I say engagement from all, as what Richard was saying, it's not only from the client side, but also from understanding our own team and our own offerings. The reason why I'm saying so, because typically we work with multiple organizations across the globe. And when I say one account, let's say, let me talk about one account for us, would be a group which is into multiple countries, multiple businesses, and of course they would be facing multiple challenges. So when, as a person who's representing the organization, and let's say you're handling one key account, you need to identify what that key group or that particular client is into. It could be multiple businesses, multiple countries. So we typically work with one, let's say if I would talk about one group, that group works across flower farms, commercial flower farms, sugar, textile, plastics. Now, as an organization, I may be offering to my solutions to few of them, but then it is something that I would want to go back to my team and then, hey, there is a potential that we can work with the flower farms. Let's work out the product for that particular flower farm. Now, as a key account manager, it makes an opportunity for me that I identify more business volume from the same group or from the same client. So we have done such things across our clients. So where it could be identifying the new opportunity in new country or new business. At the same time, it could be identifying new challenges where we can offer our solutions. So when we have worked out multiple such solutions, which also gives us an indication what the client teams are looking for in terms of whether that's offering a solution to their new businesses or the new technology, what they are looking to implement. Now, when we are talking about this, it also gives us an indication that where the market is moving to or shifting to. So accordingly, my design team, my product team should also be prepared to work in that particular direction. So there could be multiple things. Another thing what Richard was mentioning was making mistakes is good. Definitely it is good. And when we are talking about making mistakes, it is that the client team, that you should build that relationship with the client team. That client team should be open to talk to you. What mistakes are you making? What are the grievances? That is a very good opportunity for you to pitch for more business. Let me tell you that. So it has happened with me very recently. Last week, I was talking to one of our old clients, and he was mentioning that these are the areas what your team can improve. And let me tell you, rather than it was a complaint session, it was a session which helped me pitch more business to the client. Right? So I can talk more on this. So it's more about identifying the key stakeholder, what are their inclinations. And it's not about running towards those inclinations, but then the kind of relationship that you build with them, you kind of become a key partner or family for that particular account. So it's more of building that relationship which stays with you and the client. And here it becomes way more important for us, for the kind of businesses that we are into, because the client would always look up to you as a key partner. So even if they're going for a new business, new product, new technology, the first person that he or she should recall is you, that this guy is going to help me in anything that I do. So you should be kind of a sounding board for the client or for the customer. And that is something which is very important. So there are multiple facets what I wanted to talk about, but I don't know if I have further time to it. The last one I would want to add is what Richard was mentioning is defining expectation and generating more value. So of course, it is like one key facet when it comes to our business or the kind of clients that we look at. What would be the overall customer lifetime value is something what a key account professional should identify. And that sets the tone for the entire business plan or business strategy. And lastly, of course, it's not a sales approach. It's more of a business approach or a business strategy, what one should look at when it comes to key account management. So, of course, I can talk more and I would love to talk more in due course. For now, I think I'll take a pause.
I think we have audience with the questions. It was really great perspective, Aakaash.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Yes, Irene, we are open to questions.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. The question we have.
Yes, I will convey the question. So the question is from Anurag Gar. Do you mean that we keep developing more domain within our organization as per group requirement?
If I understand the question correctly, you are saying that do you mean that we look for more products or more offerings to the market, right? So in my view, the answer is yes. Am I correct? Is that the question?
Yeah. So
Yes.
Urvi, you have to check your audio settings or let someone else take care of the questioning.
Is that in the chat box, Urvi?
So I'll go forward with it.
Yeah,
The
please,
question
please.
is, do you mean that we keep developing more domain within our organization as per the group requirement?
If that I get that question now, thank you so much. So if that is what fits into your business plan and strategy, if that is possible, I think yes, that has worked for us, and something what we keep doing as well all the time, because it's like listening to what your customer is wanting and offering that solution. So it could be it could mean different things for different businesses. So if it's a product business, of course it would mean something else. But when it comes to, let's say, the kind of business that we are into management consulting, for us it would mean that client has a lot of other areas. Now it is for the organization to identify and weigh whether that is something that they would want to proceed further. If that is lucrative for them, why not? Of course. And going further, it's not only about keeping it lucrative. Many of the times it may happen that you may not be, as an organization, may not be able to offer it. So it is a completely organization call. But in a nutshell, yes, we should do that.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible now?
Wonderful.
Yes, better.
Yes, we have received more questions through our Google Form circulation. So the question is, how do you work with your customers and how does the negotiation process work?
How do we work with our customer and how the negotiation works out? Okay, so when it comes to how we work with our customers, is basically identifying where the challenges are in terms of, we typically work in organizational transformation domain where we help our clients to improve their profitability. And when we are working in that space, there are plenty of opportunities that we can work on with our clients. So first is, of course, identifying those areas of improvement. Next is where many of the times client may have identified as well, is the next step is where we prioritize that this is what we can bring on the table, identifying and defining that this would be our scope, and we work with clients on the value creation. So here, when I say management consulting or the kind of offering that we have, it's more of value creation that we look at and the return on the investment. So that typically answers the next part, what you were saying. How do we get into a negotiation? I would say it's more of a value creation, and we put our skin in the game when it comes to value creation. And so we charge our fees accordingly, the value that we are creating for the client. So I would say negotiation comes in a little later, or rather it is insignificant if we are able to communicate the value creation to the client accordingly. Negotiation is kind of insignificant.
We have some more questions in the chat. If anyone wants to ask, please proceed with your questions.
I think let's move on to next speaker. We can take them in the end. We have another 10 minutes window.
So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Aakaash. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aakaash, sir. That was really insightful and intriguing. Now I really hope and request Shalini ma'am to come forward.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I hope I'm audible now and everything is absolutely
yes.
okay.
Yes, it's great now. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you so much. So basically, we'll start with my organization, Digi-Station, which is basically, it's a startup which got formed on 1st of April 2020. And we have a two-tier structure. One is we work with the manufacturers directly, manufacturers and IT providers. And the second tier structure is because we have large relationship and large customers. So we work with the customers directly, wherein we onboard manufacturers, we include service providers on the platform, which has been indigenously developed by us. This is how our entire, and therein we segregate into key account and a commodity selling. Anything which is a very commodity and a box selling approach, what we do is we sell it through the platform in which the manufacturers onboard their product. And whereas the consultative selling is required, therein we deal it through a key account management process, the regular process where we have account managers going to the sets of account, understanding the ecosystem of the customer, and then positioning whatever needs to be positioned. And then figuring it out how the solutions across the manufacturers, the service providers can be stitched and given to the customer. However, we are not limited only to IT. We cater to customers' end-to-end requirements and basically large customers, which includes
your expertise-wise, consulting, then cybersecurity, IoT, artificial intelligence, telecom, IT, and the list is endless. Though the journey started on 1st of April 2020, but we have onboarded large number of customers and the journey is going and moving at a pace which we have envisaged for ourselves. Now, coming back to the discussion which we are going to have it with regards to how to develop a key account management plan and how is it the execution part of it. I'll just take it from where Richard left, and I really loved his approach when he said that key account management is not a sales technique. So I'll take this entire thing from there, and we said, yes, I agree, it's not a sales technique. It is basically an organization perspective shift, and which is what key account managers bring as far as organizations are concerned. Now, this is not sales. This is very different from what sales is all about. Sales is short-term measure, going to the customer, sniffing an opportunity, selling it, and moving out of it. Key account is an engagement, which is a long-term engagement where you engage with the customer not only for generating business at one time, but ensuring a 5-year, a 3-year, a 7-year plan is developed along with the customer so that the customer grows along with you as you grow in the value, as you grow with the customer. And this is where it differentiates a sales. A sales gets differentiated from key account management. Key account manager from that perspective is a very matured level of engaging with the customer with one objective that the revenues have to be grown with the customer by cross-selling and upselling as far as the customer ecosystem is concerned. Hence, it is extremely important that we have the right approach and a development plan when we are carving out the key account management plan. Now, not necessarily any revenue customer, a large revenue customer has to be a key account. It's not important that. The key account, as we differentiate, is somebody who may not be a large customer, but has a potential to become big because of the vision they carry in the market. The second one is, yes, they are customers. They may not be very big with us as of now, but there's a huge competitive landscape which is working in the ecosystem, wherein if we engage and start taking off the customer's end-to-end ecosystem, the customer will grow with us. And this is where, when it comes to key account management, lots of energy, lots of time need to be spent to see to it we actually identify the right kind of customers for doing key account management. Or else there would not be any difference between a sales and a key account management. Taking it further from there, unlike a sales program, which just focuses on short term, this is, as I said before, it's a long cycle wherein the objective is that you develop a very long association. So to do that, what is the first important thing when you do it with the customer is identify the accounts which are basically needed, where key account management skills are needed. Otherwise, if you look at the universe from an India perspective, you have ET, B500, BT 500 kind of customers, but then you look into it, not everybody will qualify in the range of just because the revenues are high to be a key account. Contrary to that, there's lots of work which needs to be done, figuring it out. How are they geographically spread? What is the current business they are doing right now? What is the vision for the next 5-year plan? What is it they're trying to do as far as their solvency is concerned? What is the existing modules which we have in place? What is the kind of revenues which they are giving right now? How much of the revenue is being spent on the products which you represent? It's a combination of various factors to actually come into the position. Okay, these are the accounts which we need to do. We need to identify as a key account plan. And there's lots of work which needs to get into it. So this is basically not what sales managers can do. This is where the role of senior management of any organization comes in to see to it the right kind of accounts gets identified for the key account managers to put in their energies, to put in their focus for the growth of their own organization. Second one is, once it gets identified based on the various parameters you have defined, the next line of the course of action comes in, yet you have to deep profile this as well. And you have to profile it based on your goals and their goals as well. You have to profile it based on the business and the markets they represent. You have to profile on the base of the kind of stakeholders which are there and what kind of influence they would have when if you're engaging with them. And then, the analyst reports and the competition landscape they have in that particular thing, that becomes the basis when you start doing this thing. Then comes in, it's important to understand what kind of buying pattern do they have. Is it like, they go in for a capex model, they go in for an apex model, do they want, because at the end of the day, if the association has to be long term, then at the same time, it's equally important that you are engaging with them to provide end-to-end services in a much more managed way, so that the customer has the CSAT of the customer is on a higher side. Then comes in, what is it the kind of focus they have in years to come? What is the first year plan, the second year plan? And this has to get married to your plan as well, to see to it. And then you see to it as to how you can actually, identify them to develop that further. And then before handing it over to the account manager. So these 4 pointers wherein, you identify the account, you profile the account, you figure it out, the 5-year plan, you figure it out what is the buying process in place, you figure it out as to what is it they want to do on an year-to-year basis. These are the pointers which actually go into identification of the accounts. And what I personally believe this is where the management has to play an important role. Having identified accounts or developing a key account management strategy and defining that these are the customers I need to go after, the next in line comes in the execution part of it. And now the execution will not happen all of a sudden. There has to be some training, some programs which needs to be given to the people who are basically your key account managers. And there has to be a transition between an organization from sales to the key account manager. Not everybody who do sales can be a key account manager, and vice versa. So basically, you have to identify the resources who can actually help you into doing a key account management, which is a much more rigorous exercise where results don't come overnight. But if you focus in those accounts with a long-term objective, obviously the results come in. And the team which you're in paneling, or team whom you will be giving the responsibility to work with the customer, should not be one who would get scared because the gestation period is coming on the higher side. They should be the one who should basically work along with the customer. And then as an organization, because the returns would be very high, you have to see to it, how is it that you're engaging and focusing on these sets of accounts, so that even if the long-term results comes in, you are not losing the patience anymore. Hence, it's important to have the right kind of team. And if the team is there, if that team has to be built in, or you can say the training part has to be given to it, so that they can graduate themselves from a sales manager to a key account manager. Then once it is being done, then you have to dedicate the accounts to the account managers so that they can take it forward from there. And then once the accounts get dedicated, the next steps comes in getting into the need assessment program. The need assessment definitely sees what is the kind of organization pain points. What are the challenges they are facing? Because this is a this part of need assessment challenges, what are the kind of pain points are there. And that's where when the account manager starts getting engaged in this particular sets of accounts and they start finding out the pain point area, there is enough inputs which comes into the organization to start planning out in the long run. Because sometimes what happens is you do not have on the top solutions, or you can say on the desk solutions to be given to the customer. But because you have identified these accounts as a long-term account, you start planning it out as to what kind of solutions which we can give into the customers, so that in future, when we are taking care of this pain area, they are only helping you to grow your revenues with them. Further to this, because this is not a box selling thing, this is more of a key account management selling thing. The energies and everything has to be focused in the right direction to see to it the returns follow. So you cannot have a sales strategy where you're all the time asking the account manager to start delivering results, because you have defined the accounts as one who should get results to you. As it's a long-term plan, long-term vision, it has to have a plan which is running to 5 years, further dividing to 3 years, further divided to 24 months, further divided to 12 months, with an objective is at the end of 12 months, this is a bare minimum you should start getting from the account, and then how the exponential growth which should happen on an year-to-year basis. And once from a sales perspective or key account management perspective, Once he or she has done the need assessment, then once you align the product engine, you align the products which you already have, you align the solutions which you already have, to see to it the sales starts happening in those organizations. So while development of the account is the most key parameter, or you can say is something very crucial where the senior management has to play an important role, as far as the execution is concerned, while I agree that everybody in the organization has to support the key account managers, but at the same time, it's equally important that we have the right resources to drive this conversation with the customer, so that your vision, the customer vision, can only help in the growth of the revenue. And that's all from my side. I'm open for questions, if any.
Thank you, Shalini. It was really great to hear all these perspectives. Yes, Irene, we can move on to questions, if any.
Yes, Aishwarya, any questions from the Google Forms?
Yeah, I cannot see in the chat. So we have questions from Google Forms. After the pandemic, business strategies have changed in terms of purchase process, face-to-face meetings, negotiations, and so on. So how do you tackle it successfully and make it possible to convert profitable business deals?
Fair enough. Yes, I agree that ever since the pandemic has come in, the way we have been doing sales have changed. Today, it is basically, it's the same amount of time which you used to spend face to face with the customer. Today, we are spending it on the collaboration tools. It can be like a Zoom meeting, it can be like a WebEx meeting, and today the customer does not have the time to go round and round. He expects you to understand his problem and come out with the solution, so that the time is much more productive. In the given scenario, it's equally important your first conversation with the customer should have as many probing questions as possible, so that you don't have to go back again and again with the same kind of questions and to come out with the solutions. It's a first meeting which should be constructive, which implies you have to do your homework well in understanding the customer ecosystem. Then when you engage with the customer, you have to see to it you're well prepared into the probing questions, you have all the questions which you have asked, and then when you go back after doing the thorough homework in terms of understanding the customer landscape, competition landscape as well. Because today in the current scenario, it's a third or the fourth meeting where the customer takes a decision, and he takes a decision based on the kind of homework you have done before presenting yourself to him. So in the current scenario, where collaboration tools are one which helps you do this communication over the internet platform, your readiness in terms of understanding the customer segment, which arises after the probing which you have done from the customer, plays an important role into helping the customer get the right kind of solution. And this speeds up the process of sales as well, right?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was quite interesting and so enlightening. I mean, it's getting serious now. From an introduction to now, it's really bringing out everybody's knowledge and experiences. So thank you so much for sharing. I would now request all the participants to kindly fill the feedback form. Our teammate Priyanka has sent the link for the same in the chat. Yes. I'll give you a minute to complete that, so please do so. Now, continuing with the event, interestingly to know about the key account management profitability, I request Sir Hemant Kaul, sir, to kindly take over the forum.
Thank you, Irene. I'm very happy to be here as part of this discussion. As was mentioned by Aakaash, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible,
yes,
but
not very loudly though.
So maybe the speaker near or something like that can be done.
So as was mentioned by Richard in the beginning, he gave us an overview of what key account management is and is not. The thing about profitability really is, as Richard said, you have to become the preferred supplier. You have to get higher prices, and yet you have to make a lot of money. So I think that's a very big challenge that comes in. Aakaash talked about a very important point, and he kept harping about one very important point, which was about how he in his company, and what we can all do is talk about the value that we are delivering to the consumers. And that's, I think, where profitability gets generated for the organization, for the key account organization, as well as finding a sweet spot where the customer gets benefited as well. Shalini has given us, in a nutshell, a crash course in key account management, and thank you, Shalini, for that. And I'll take on from there of how do you essentially ensure that your key account management program is profitable and generating profits, so profit contribution that Richard talked about, and not just margins. So it's very important, I think, first and foremost, a large number of organizations actually tend to sometimes believe that they are running key account management programs without really understanding key account management program, whereas they are really running sales programs, and just classifying their salespeople as key account managers and assigning some accounts to them is not enough, because typically such programs will give you revenue. They'll give you what Richard also talked about, share of account, but the costs associated with such large accounts are significant, and you end up actually not making enough money that you targeted from such relationships. So I think that understanding that key account management is not sales management, as Shalini also mentioned, is extremely important. And therefore, it's important that we understand what are key accounts and how do key accounts become profitable for you. So can every account be classified as a key account? Of course not. We all know that. What would be possibly, the thing about Pareto's principle about 80-20, we all know about that. I think it's a very good place to start and saying that let's look at, and I think every organization, my own organization, I've seen it's not 80-20, but it's 70-30. I mean, very close to it, so don't need to get, worried about that I'm not fitting into the 80-20. I think principle is important. It's important to, understand that key accounts have to be limited, and they don't have to be large number of accounts, because key accounts devour a lot of resources. So even the largest of organizations cannot have a large number of key accounts, and therefore you've got to make your choice absolutely clear. And that choice could be based on, and I'm giving a list of things. Every organization will think differently because of the position that they are in and their own strategic intent, as they go along. Wallet size of a key account over 2 to 3 years. So if you have, Richard mentioned, a typical planning period of a key account of 24 months. So it could be 24 months, it could be 36 months. Shalini also talked about 7 years, 10 years, and I think both are valid. In today's world, we tend to believe in the short and the medium term because of the pandemic. But eventually, I think we have to have a balance between the short term and the long term. And therefore, wallet size of a key account over a period of time is something that needs to be assessed very clearly. Of course, in that, it comes into upselling, the possibility of upselling, the possibility of cross-selling, which could expand the wallet size. The growth over this period. I mean, is it going to be organic? Shalini also talked about a lot of research that you need to do into understanding how organized those key accounts are growing. You look at their financial ratios, look at what their competitive strengths in their industry is, and you identify the accounts that are the winning accounts. And then you say that here is the growth that could be over and above the industry growth, and possibly these are the accounts that I would like to have as part of my key account management pool. Finally, of course, you need to be able to classify the profitability that you will generate from these accounts. And that is key, and I'll talk about that later. However, you could, you could also say that, okay, the wallet size may not be large for a certain account, but we believe on the basis of how they are today and what the intent of the organization and what their competitive advantage is developing over a period of time, I could put them into my key account management pool, because there is a strategic element to this entire thing. They may not be very large accounts, they may not be very profitable accounts today, but you have the vision that here is a company which could grow into a large customer as I mean, in my own business, we support 7 of the large 10 companies, tire companies in the world, and all the tire companies in India. And there is one particular company which is not a mainstream tire company. They are very price conscious at this point in time compared to the other companies that we work with, but their profitability ratios are 2x of the next competitor. So we've identified that here is a company that may be price conscious at this point in time, but they're a global player. They're acknowledged by the leaders in the world in the tire industry as a company which is upcoming. And therefore, for us to, I remember Rama Bijapurkar, who's a marketing guru, talked about buying an option in the future. So what you're doing by taking this account as part of your key account is you're buying an option in the future. You're saying today, this account may not deliver the revenue, the market share, but in the future, this is something that will happen. And therefore, you might have a subset of customers that you would like to put as part of your key account list that you have. Going forward, I think it's very important to understand the value of the customer very well. So as we said, something that we all use and we've been using forever and something that doesn't change, which is the lifetime value, the forecast, the lifetime value of the customer. It may not just be the wallet size, but it obviously includes also the profit pool that is available for all the suppliers there, and how much of that can you garner by having the competitive advantage over your other suppliers that are, looking at that particular customer as well. Once that is done, I think it's very important also, and I mentioned about the costs, to accurately have a system where you are able to understand, ascribe costs to such accounts. So whether you could use the activity-based costing, though that's more, it's better for product margins, but you could do customer profitability analysis as well. So I think understanding the costs behind servicing large accounts is equally important, because if you don't, all that you're looking at is the revenue and possibly the margin contribution, overall a product contribution, but you do not know really, and you are not ascribing the costs that are being incurred by the organization in getting that additional business today, tomorrow, and forever. I think that's the key important thing as well that one needs to understand. Once this has been done, I think profitability will come in from various levels of profitability, come with various kinds of key accounts. I think one of the things that I have learned over many years is Professor McDonald of Cranfield. He has a 2x2 matrix in which he talks about, on the y-axis he puts the account. He puts the account attractiveness on the y-axis, and he puts the competitive advantage that you have as an organization being able to service those accounts. So if you typically put 2x2 matrix, and you will know that there are accounts which are where they have very high attractiveness, and you are very well positioned to gather, be the number one the supplier to them. And that's where you would possibly concentrate a certain amount of resources from your side, and you'll have a profit pool from there. Similarly, there'll be customers where your the attractiveness is very high, but you are not positioned very well today. So these are customers where you need to invest in building those competitive advantages compared to your customers. There'll be a third type of customer where your competitive advantage is very high, but their attractiveness is low at this point in time. I would not say they are not attractive, they are low on attractiveness. In those kind of customers, what you would do is, okay, they're not attractive today, let me look at sustained earnings from them. So then finally, there are those customers, everybody dreads them, but maybe there is a strategic intent behind keeping those customers, which are low on attractiveness. And I'm again saying they're not unattractive, they're low on attractiveness, and you have low ability to differentiate. In those cases, maybe you don't need a key account manager, or you need a key account manager who is not at the cutting edge of their skills, but somebody who can keep the account running and ensuring that costs are minimized in those kind of accounts. So if you work on this approach, which is kind of a portfolio approach of key accounts, you are able to generate for these four kind of customers the kind of revenue, the share of wallet, and finally the profit pool that you will be able to generate from any of these. That's something that eventually it needs to go on to some kind of an Excel sheet. It needs to go from the sales management up to the top management to get their buy-in. And I think this was another point that was made very clearly, that unless you have the top management buy-in and you have the cross-functional teams across the organization understanding this, that this value will not get delivered by the sales guys, by the key account manager or the one function. It has to be delivered across the organization, and everybody needs to lose their sleep over any things that are not on track, and try to bring that back on track. So I think that's very important. I saw a question, and I'm preempting that answer to that question. I think it's very valid. Somebody talked about that if there are key accounts who are asking us for discounts all the time, and what do we do there? And I think we face that, from the best of accounts and possibly not the best of accounts. I think it's very important to, once you have ascribed the value of that customer very clearly, these are things that you can, as Aakaash also said, sometimes negotiation doesn't come into because you've proven your value to the customer. Sometimes it still remains and you still need to, continuously create the value. I think there are many techniques of pricing that you can look at. You can look at confirmed price reductions over a period of time if a certain volume comes in. I've used it very successfully with a couple of customers. Of course, this is a win-win. You can't just reduce price. If you've created value for the customer and the customer acknowledges that, you can't just reduce price and let margins go. Therefore, you could use something which is called the confirmed price reductions over a period of time. You could have cost sharings. I have known organizations which can look at, redesigning their supply chain to reduce costs, and then saying that this is the cost reduction that we've done transparently, and saying, okay, this is $5, you take $5, I take, and therefore you've built more value into the relationship. There could be shared profits. So it could be that you are upselling a particular product or you're cross-selling a particular product, and that's creating value for your organization as well. And if you have a very deep relationship, a long-standing relationship, a transparent relationship, a trusting relationship with your key account, I think there are a few that you might find that there is a possibility of actually, sharing with them the profits that are getting generated from that business. So I think those are things that one should be looking at. But at the same time, I mentioned that unless you attack the denominator, which is the costs, you may not end up making money. So redesigning supply chains, if needs to be to deliver the value, targeted cost reductions, and this is where the cross-functional teams come in. That's something that probably sometime needs to get delivered. I've also known in this period of time when in the pandemic, where organizations have said that we need to look at outsourcing some of the key functions of the organization very importantly. For instance, back office, for instance, customer service. Those are things that you could outsource and generate significant cost reductions, which eventually lead to a profit, maximization or increase of profit with a customer. So I think this is the way I believe, customer accounts, these key accounts can become more and more profitable. Finally, I think if you were to look at one metric that one could look at of seeing what is the kind of a surplus that, if I were to call it that, a key account management program or a key account is delivering. I think if you look at, purely from a financial perspective, look at the forecast, as part of the lifetime value of the customer, you look at the net free cash flows that are flowing in for the organization over the planned period. You look at the capital that you're employing as part of it, and then multiply it with the cost of the capital that you have in as an organization. So between the net free cash flows and the capital employed and the cost of capital, you get the surplus. And if that surplus is generating shareholder value, then you can broadly say that your key account management program seems to be on the right track. So just to summarize, I think it's important to have a few number of accounts. It doesn't need to be large number of accounts. Use the Pareto principle as a thumb rule. Look at having the right measures of what a key account is, whether it is wallet share of wallet, whether it is profitability, whether it's the opportunity for cross-selling, or whether and of course profitable profit contribution that the account builds in. Classify those customers probably into a 2x2 matrix or a 3x3 matrix. Essentially, it gives you a visual representation of your entire pool of customers. Slicing the market into various segments and then seeing, are you attacking the right kind of customers there? And finally, looking at building the value in the relationship that is there and delivering that value. And that is what will eventually be a win-win between the customer and the company. And wherever we've seen that these win-wins is quite a cliched thing, but actually it works. If the realization is on both sides that we are working towards a win-win and there is a fair and transparent and a trusting relationship built over many years, or showing the potential of being built and strengthened over many years, there is no way that the account and the customer, the company delivering or the supplier will not, have a great relationship. So that's what I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much. We really got to know many technical aspects also of this side. Yes, Irene, yeah. We are open to questions. I think Aishwarya can take up one question from Amol, which is there in the chat box.
Yes, ma'am. A question from Aman Pansare is that in case of today's scenario of rising prices in regular intervals, how as a key account management or a manager should manage this with key accounts?
Yeah, very, very relevant question. Thank you, Amol, for that question. I have a very recent example of a very large company doing business with us for over 2 decades. And this is a company that we export to in multiple geographies across the world, something that Aakaash also talked about. He has some customers like that. And we realized, I think most of us are aware that ocean freights have skyrocketed, 5x times in most of the geographies. And our business, our pricing was on a fully delivered pricing. So, we've borne the ocean freight on ourselves and therefore, deliver a certain price to the customer. Now, this is an annual contract. And the moment we saw that the ocean freights are going out of, anybody's control, and we were very close to, and this I'm talking a year back when this started happening around September, October, bang in the middle of the pandemic, we realized and we forecast that very quickly, if we do not address it with our customer, the value that we are generating is going to go down the drain. And the relationship with the customer is such that we were able to actually talk to them and explain to them that this is how the market is. You're very well aware, you're facing similar kind of challenges. And we had a transparent meeting with them, transparent exchange of data as well. And this comes from what I mentioned earlier, the fact that there should be a trusting relationship between the account and the supplier. What we were able to do is build a model in which, there are some models where organizations are able to, there are subscription models in which for every freight increase that is happening, there is a index. So we built our pricing around that index for every quarter. So, and what it did is that it created a transparent mechanism for the customer to know that we understand that there is a problem. We understand that we need to compensate you. It's not possible for you to bear this cost. But at the same time, there was a sharing that if the index goes by so much, this is how much we will share with you. So I think the fundamental thing really is to have a trusting relationship. Customers will come back to us many times again and again. I think it's important to be ahead of the curve, understand why a customer is coming back to you. Is it something in the environment for which you need to be prepared? Is it something in their internal structure? And, this was mentioned earlier that suddenly a customer comes and says, I want to stop business with you. You should have the ability to be able to forecast such events that the customer is going to come back again and again to you. So not the best thing to happen that a customer comes back again and again, wants to negotiate, but building a long-term relationship probably helps you there, put up your point of view, understanding the market better, the macroeconomic and your industry trends, and also what is happening in the account is something that you can also help. Lastly, one of the points that I would like to build and talk about is, Aakaash gave this very good example. It was very interesting about DDLJ and Bawarchi and, all of those Indian films about how you need to, as a key account manager, have relationships within and, cater to all. I read a research sometime back, a few years back, and it said that for a key account management program to work very well, it's important that each key account is able to have at least 6 relationships within the organization of the client. If you have those relationships, let's say with the technical, with the purchasing, you will have with the sales, with the supply chain, you are more likely to be successful and be, some kind of shield will be built for you when hard negotiations about price or, letting some value goes in, because then you have a pool of people within that organization who are actually in your favor than doing quarterly price discussions. Does that answer your question, Amol? Hello?
I think it does, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, let's move on, Erin. I will take the question.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very informative. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. Now I would request Ms. Bhavna Bindra to brief us about the leading cross-functional teams. As we were already speaking about it, let's move more into it.
Thank you, Irene. And I'm so glad you said yes. We've been hearing a lot of good stuff on key account management. So I was actually wondering what is it I will say which has not already been said or implied. So I decided, firstly, thank you, MasterMyLife, for having me here and for choosing a topic which I think as much as we say about it is never enough. Because while it's the most critical topic, I think it's also the most misunderstood or misinterpreted, or I would say most widely interpreted topic in the corporate world. So I'll begin by sharing a little bit of an example from my own experience. At a point in time, I was part of an organization which actually was set up to cater to one customer. And this one customer was not a tiny customer. It was actually the biggest commercial vehicle manufacturer in the country. And when we looked at this customer and we set up this organization, it came very naturally that every function in the organization, whether it was production, supply chain, customer support, engineering, so on and so forth, every customer was every function was actually catering to this particular customer. So it very naturally happened that every metric of every function was actually being tracked for this particular customer. Now, that is awesome because when we say key account management, to me, the account in the key account management actually is accountability. And it is accountability to a customer, which is that account. To me, that was the most natural way in which cross-functional teams get managed when it comes to a key account customer. However, as aspirations grew and we wanted to get into more customers, what we realized was happening was two things. One, and it was said earlier, yes, you do your 80-20 rule, and you will always have that one big customer for which the organization is set up as being the most important. But then as you need to grow, and like Hemant also talked, you're looking into the future, you're investing for the future into customers, you need to grow other accounts. What happens is as we add customers, so let's look at another spectrum of an organization where you have tons of customers, right? The more you added customers, the more the organization finds it very exhausting to actually be able to track every function's metrics by a customer. So what starts happening? The organization or every function in it starts consolidating. So if I'm, let's say, talking about supply chain metrics, so if you're talking about on-time deliveries, supply chain would come back and tell me, so I used to head the business, and they would come back and tell me, oh, we've got like 98.9%, okay, let's say 99% on-time deliveries. That's awesome. However, what we didn't see is that 1% is probably with that second or the third largest customer, which ends up being very small and hence was not able to influence the metrics to that great an extent. In such a case, it was important for the organization to actually give every one of those second, third, fourth, and so on customers the importance such that your systems were tracking metrics for the customers. Now, what happens is, yes, we say it's easier to do. As a CEO or as a head of business, you always want to tell your teams, okay, show me by customer everything. We've always had organizations which either find it easier to do it functionally or to do it by segments. But at the end of the day, accounts are nothing but, when you put them together, they become the segments of the business. But data, especially in some of the very traditional organizations, systems don't support that kind of a data crunching. So what starts happening is anybody who's dealing with these customers starts struggling to push the envelope, to drive performance when it comes to every function in the organization. So when I sit back and see what are some of the things that worked when it came to managing cross-functional teams to drive accountability, which is at the crux of a key account manager's role, I think one is for those of you in the audience who are at the helm of organizations and are able to make changes happen. One is in terms of our structure. Now, I know it sounds like an idealistic world, but having been part of a business which was actually set up for a customer and then grew into other customers and was able to structure the business in a way that it was catering to customers. So certain functions had people whose focus for that function was a particular customer. And yes, this is easier done in larger organizations, but even in smaller organizations, I think the crux of the matter lies in the fact that if we are able to drive our metrics with each of the functions such that they are looking at specific customers, we are able to get to accountability for performance rather than using a broad-brushed approach at a functional level. Now, easier for those of you who are thinking, okay, fine, if I was the CEO or if this was my company, I would have chosen to run it that way so that I could drive the importance and emphasis of those key accounts that I want to make happen. But then what about those for whom key account management is a role they are doing? Now, doing that role, and we did hear earlier, Shalini talking about it, when you're a key account manager, there is a lot you're trying to make happen. And you need every function to make happen the same level of ownership that you feel for a particular account. So first of all, as a key account manager, there is, or rather I would say, never think there is any particular function that can tell you that it is not in your purview. Because if you are a key account manager, everything and anything that caters to a customer is part of your purview. So one is that clarity driven across the organization is important. Secondly, I've seen key account managers use several tools, if I may say, or let's say several aces up their sleeves, depending on whom they are dealing with, what kind of a function, and also the size of their account. Sometimes, if I look at a customer life cycle, I always begin it with you, especially in the B2B space where you've got large projects that you do with customers, you start with project, you then go into having, engineering, application engineering. I'm going with an example of, a very highly technical tool going into an OEM's equipment. And then once you've done that, once you've done the prototyping with this project, you actually start doing account management. Now, when you look at these account managers, and this is a new account, so let's just say we just started with a new account. For this person, it is important for everybody to understand the potential of that particular account. And the best way to show the potential is actually to put it out. A lot of times people have the tendency to, just talk it, just kind of, build all the castles in the air. But the best tool is to actually put it on paper, to bring all the relevant people in the room. And when I say bring the relevant people, I mean across the function. Because as a key account, you're literally dealing with a microcosm of the organization. And that microcosm, it is representative of the entire organization. So bringing in the key people and making sure they understand the criticality and importance of a particular account is important. Moving on, as the life cycle of this account continues, I've seen, like I said earlier, key account managers using several tools. So one of them, when they are driving cross-functional teams, is about driving by influence. Okay. The second is about driving by persistence. A lot of times you see key account managers decide they have to be a pain for somebody for them to make sure they are giving them the right importance. And again, like I said, depending on how much people have seen the value of that account will determine which one you use. Whether you are able to drive by influence, it's not something everybody is able to do, or it is pure persistence. The third, and I think this is one which a lot of smart account managers use, is about using authority. And it's not always that they themselves have the authority, but the fact that they have a role to play in the organization means that somebody at a senior level, if not all the way up to the CEO, somebody next to them, do sponsor these accounts and do see the value of these accounts into the future. Using that authority and bringing people back into the room, or ensuring they understand the importance of a particular account by actually going into function's performance and KPIs by that particular account is what one is able to drive. And I have seen key account managers use several of these tools in combination on a day-to-day basis, because that's how cross-functional teams are able to work. And this, of course, if the structure of the organization doesn't support a customer-focused organization. So to me, in a nutshell, a key account manager is somebody who helps the organization drive accountability towards a customer. So irrespective of whether you were HR, finance, supply chain, production, sales, marketing, customer support, and so on and so forth, it is accountability for that account that a key account manager helps drive. I'll take a pause over here and see if there were any questions or comments.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks, Bhavna. So let's move on to questions, if anyone has.
I think, ma'am, the more in depth we are going, the lesser questions people are having because they're already getting so much knowledge. Yeah.
Right.
From the Google,
as well, they must be reflecting also.
Yes.
We will have one question from our Google Forms. How do the role of a key account manager differ across industries? For example, advertising industry, FMCG, automobile, or so on.
So I can probably speak about the industries I have experienced in the past. And at least for the ones I have experienced, I wouldn't say the role of a key account manager differs. I think what differs to me is the fact that what kind of a structure an organization has and how attuned is that structure to supporting a key account manager. Sometimes organizations just create roles called key account managers and pretty much leave the CAM, as we say, KAM, to determine what they need to do. And then whatever is nobody's baby falls in the CAM's lap to be sorted. A lot of organizations deal with it that way. Another thing across industries is also the fact that some industries will have some functions and others will have other functions to cater to the value chain of the customer. At a point in time, like I said earlier, for a key account manager, it is important to know that there is no function which is adding any value to a customer that is not his or her responsibility, and that is not a function that he can choose to not drive accountability for. So to me, those would be more the areas that would determine how industry to industry key account managers behave. Other than that, I think in terms of what they need to make happen, it is the same as far as I can see. Sorry, there was a question that popped up, which I couldn't read.
It's in the chat box.
We have a question from Arun Kodapli. How key account manager is different in product industry and service industry?
How key account manager is different in product and service industry? Well, from my perspective, so I have dealt with key account managers in both. In fact, I have myself been one in at least one of them. And to me, again, the role is the same. You need to drive accountability. In fact, I realized much later that a lot of very efficient and a lot of very high-performing key account managers spread their wings across the value chain. Now, whether it's a product value chain or a service value chain, it is no different. If you have to be an effective key account manager, you are across the board. What may differ is from a customer expectation standpoint. In a lot of product organizations, the expectation from a customer may be a bit different relative to a service organization. But yes, in a specific industry, for the customer expectations, the key account manager has an end-to-end response.
We also have one more question from Priyanka as well. Can approach through references be beneficial?
Sorry, Aishwarya.
Can approach through references be beneficial?
Approach to references.
So the approach is what? Approach is some acronym she is talking about or what?
The references I meant, so if you're one company is referring other company for the business, for the one.
Talking about a referral.
She's talking about a referral. Would that benefit the organization?
So if you want to have a good relationship, so we can just go in indirect approach rather than a direct approach. I meant that.
Priyanka, for me, the rule of thumb on referrals, irrespective of whether it's account manager or anywhere, it is a good foot in the door, but to stay in the room, after you have put a foot in the door, you need to have some content and substance. And I think that's where you distinguish between a good and a not so good key account manager.
That's a very valid point, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think we do, yeah. Thank you so much, Bhavna, ma'am. It's been amazing speaking with you and getting so much of information from you. Thank you so much. Moving forward, we have a poll again for the participants coming up. So please do participate. The question you would see is, what challenges does a key account manager face in the sector? Yeah. You have 30 seconds.
So when you say this sector means which sector? Irene?
Aishwarya?
Yeah, Aishwarya. So what challenges does a key account manager faces in this sector? So which is this secret sector?
Sir, it can be as a key account manager. What challenges we face?
Okay, so I'm ending the poll and I'm sharing the results. Yes, so.
Risk of forecasting and dynamic trends is a high challenge. Okay, great. Okay, moving forward, I now request Sir Sudeep Sen, who will be explaining to us the metrics for managing key accounts, to come forward and give his speech.
Thanks. So first of all, I think thanks to MasterMyLife for setting up this opportunity and giving me this opportunity to talk about the key account management. This is very close to my heart because I think in the last 20 years, I have been doing this role, and there's been a lot of success. At the same time, there has been a lot of learning as well. I have a bit of a presentation which I will put up. I think some of the key points that you guys will see in the presentation has been already covered by Richard, Aakaash, Shalini, and even Bhavna. This presentation talks about, I think since we have a lot of students and the participants, it gives them a way forward that how do tools actually make it happen in a day-to-day. So I'm just sharing the screen. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So I represent a company which is GI Group. It's in India, we are kind of 2 decades old, and predominantly in the human capital space. And we deploy people with our customers, wherein we manage the end-to-end. So that's about GI Group. Moving forward, so key account management, I think we heard from all my learned panelists about the key account management and the ways. So I think for the students, it's important that what do we call actually a key account? So a key account where, you know, we have a focused approach, cross-functional culture, which is what we spoke about, all the departments of an organization coming together and kind of putting their hands together to see to it that the deliverables are done. and flexibility to meet. The word flexibility is a very important thing, because in managing key accounts, it requires a lot of flexibility, which comes on a day-to-day basis as you grow that account. Now, what are those 5 key important things for anybody to understand that what is a key account? Sustainable business terms, very important. The cost of service, the cost at which you are going to service, the revenue that you make, the profit that you make, and of course, growth. Do that account have a growth mindset is very important for somebody to be classified, any account to be classified as a key account. The next thing is repeat business, repeat purchase, repeat supply with a growth mindset again, because this repeat thing actually sets up what you call as a key account in due course of time. To start with, it might be a key account, but the real color, the real culture of the key account comes at a later part of the years. And here is where it is also linked with the plans that Shalini spoke about, 12 months plans, 24 months plans, and even 5-year plans as well. There has to be a mutual dependency and a long-term engagement. The key account management, growth of key accounts are not just short-term, these are long-term. And we have to also keep something in mind, that the customer also needs us. And hence, it has to be a value proposition which needs to be showcased. And as you put across a value proposition, which is again worked within the organization between the cross-functional team, one needs to also put up a price. It's like batting in a cricket match, and maybe the runs are not getting scored, but you still put up a price to your wicket and say, I'm going to hang on and score. So value proposition has to come up with a cost, and of course it is important that the organization holds to that. Meet organization goals. Key account is something where there needs to be the organization goals have to be met, which is in terms of profit, fixed cost, and variable cost. All of this needs to be factored. And the last thing, I think pandemic has shown us in a greater extent, which is the technological investment and advancement, digitization and digitalization. These are very important factors, because I have seen the scenarios where key accounts have been key accounts of a customer, but over a period of time, they have not been able to hold that edge to be called a key account for a service provider or for a company, because they have not done the technological investment and advancement which is very much required, because this also plays a role in how do you curb down the cost while you look at higher profits. So moving on, what are the metrics? I think customer lifetime value, I think a lot of us spoke about. So what do we mean? We mean the total worth of a customer over a whole period of the relationship. So it's not about the first 6 months or the first 8 months, it's a much longer period. Of course, there is a formula for that as well. I think in due course of time, I'm going to share that as well. That's very important, which is customer lifetime value, which means that you need to look at the business that they're into, the diversification of business that they have done in probably the last 5 years, and the propensity of business in which you can cater to. It might also happen that there are certain piece of their business where you cannot cater. It's always good to be open, transparent, and say to it that what pie of the share is where you are looking to service them. Customer side, referenceable clients. I think one of the participants raised this question. Mention of service provider name on records, which is forums, webinars, social media. Today, social media is very popular. We often see recommendations of customers being made on social media platform about a service provider, about a supplier. Very powerful, because that builds. It also helps that you have a lot of alumni of decision makers, the likes of Mr. Hemant Kaul and etc. If they are talking about a service provider in a big way, branding them as dependable partners, it helps a lot, because it gives a lot of edge in terms of the discussions, or in terms of positioning your value proposition. Customer satisfaction, CSAT, we already know. This is a tool to measure the health of key accounts, which is very important, that it helps you to measure the health of those key accounts and also the key account managers. So it's a very correlated kind of a thing. If the CSAT score has been continuously high, which means that there is a lot of activity that is happening. Having said that, one has to also understand that what are the changes of this satisfaction. If there are 10 parameters, the average or the weighted average can be more or less the same, but there could be changes that is happening in the 10 lines. And if there are changes that are happening, wherever we are scoring or we are scoring high is good, but where we are not, we need to focus. We need to get back to the drawing room with the cross-functional team and see that what what needs to be done. It could also be that the competition impact has impacted the CSAT score, which also needs to be analyzed, that what is competition doing differently, and whatever they are doing differently needs to be also analyzed. That is it, if you want us to do that, is it going to be increase of cost, or is it a digitization which has been done, which can be adopted? So very important factor. Customer outcomes, putting customer goals first. We need to, and this is where the CXO connect with an organization and CXOs across departments is so important, because then you get to understand that what your customer goals, and then tracking customer goals as part of tracking CAM performance is very important, because here I think it's a marriage which is going to be longer. Here the value proposition is there. Here it doesn't come, the customer doesn't come out very often about asking for a price reduction or etc., because the engagement is much deeper and it's broad. It's over a breadth of time, it's a breadth of product, breadth of services. Customer interaction, very important. The key indicators, I think, indicates the time spent with the customer, the wallet share, growth, new business, the customer venturing into new businesses, customer business diversification, and multiple product positioning. Like it happens with human resource capital companies. They do staffing, they do permanent recruitment, learning, training. So what we do is that we find out the customer and we try to find out what is their spend on the other products. It could be even a BGV as well. So this is very important, and I'm sure, I think whether it's a product company or it's a service line company or the services company, this opportunity would comes rather, and I think a key account manager with the right wisdom will be able to kind of exercise that. Moving on, performance indicators for customer growth and retention, very important. So these are I think the important aspects which finally gives the outcome in terms of all that effort that has been put. What's the final outcome? So retention rate, which is percentage of expiring contracts which are getting renewed or non-renewals. Now, if it is getting renewed and you are able to hold on to the same price, excellent. If it is not getting renewed, then it requires to be, again, get back to the drawing room and understand that why is that we lost the business. It could also be the renewal is happening with a lot of pressure, and it is with respect to the fact that there is a pressure on the pricing and the expectation of deliveries have gone up, which is pretty obvious in today's market. Even then, in those cases, as one of our panelists said, it needs to be a 50-50% walkthrough, which means that I get an exclusivity in this business for the price reduction that I have done, or I reduce the price, but my share of the wallet has to also increase. These are, again, these things come out from the deeper relationships, the deeper CXO connects, and I think the time spent with the customer. Customer churn rate, which means percentage of customers who cancel the contracts, where even before the renewal came, you have lost a customer. That is a very important aspect to also measure. Customer growth rate, which means increase in the revenue on a year-on-year basis versus the cost. Has your cost also increased while your revenue have increased and probably the profit, or you have been able to sustain your cost, but your revenue has increased? So customer growth rate is also important. Support requests, which is, of course, I think a sector which a lot of people have started putting CRMs in place in order to do that. But I think the basic fundamental is that responsiveness, which is number of calls, emails, escalations from customers, reporting issues or requesting for help, how often and how well and how concrete, how neat those have been responded. So responsiveness is important. I think the second point is correlated, which is time to resolve, how long it took to resolve customer support tickets, and their feedback analysis and corrective measures. See, in a service industry, or for that matter in product also, one cannot have 100% control on escalations. There would be risk escalations. What is important is the responsiveness, and finally to see that the issue which had come up, has that been resolved. Now, one more thing which is important to understand is, could we have done it a little better, faster? If not, what stopped us to do that? What are the corrective measures which we need to take in order to ensure that any of such queries or escalation comes in future, how we can resolve them? And product engagement, how much your customers are using products that can be monitored, and of course a relationship with multiple departments. The last point is typically what I said in the first slide, or probably in the second slide, sorry, in the second slide, which was in terms of digitization and digitalization, because that's going to, one, keep things which can be monitored, and once they are monitored, we can come out with resolutions, we can come up with responses, and we can also showcase it to the customer when probably your boat is getting a bit rocky, to say, how are you helping the customers by monitoring them, by resolving them, and what's the TAT all about. So I think I'll stop the presentation now.
Thank you so much, sir. That was quite captivating. We will come back with the questions, but before we go ahead, we need Ms. Diksha Deo to give us the final brief on innovation and sustainability of key account programs.
Yeah, and then we'll come back to the questions together on this.
Yes.
Better time management.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, just a moment. Let me change. All right, awesome. Great. So thank you so much. A very big namaskar. Dil se bahut pyar sabhi ko. My dear panelists and my dear students and everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. और आपका बहुत कीमती वक्त देने के लिए ढेर सारा शुभकामनाएं and shukriya. All right. So moving ahead, innovation. So let me take you directly to a runway. And you have two aircrafts. One is Boeing and another is Airbus. Airbus is 230. Boeing is somewhere around 700 capacity. You have two aircrafts, you have a runway. It's a very small runway that we have in probably Bhubaneswar, right? Not Delhi wala. So we have a very small runway and you need to make a landing. Two aircrafts need to make a landing at the same point. What happens? The small aircraft do successfully, they land successfully, but the big aircraft, which is Boeing 700, cannot land. Probably it crashed. That happens when we talk about sustainability and scalability. So from this example, I'll explain you what does that mean. The two aircrafts that I gave an example of, Airbus 230 and Boeing 700, is your customers, and the runway is your product or services or solution. Right? If it doesn't match, it's going to crash one day. So first question that we need to ask from ourselves as a service provider or as a product provider or a product company, is your product or service scalable? Number one. That's first question. Because key account management come into picture when something happened, right? Something happened and you need to manage that. But before that, can you stop that probably the bad reviews, or maybe client can come back to you, hey, this is not working. I want this, I want that. And you're not able to see what went wrong. Can we stop that? Yes, we can stop that by lot of feedback. So what we do in our company, if we make some products, especially hardware, it's easy to make some changes in the software at the go live time or this, but hardware, if you make a hardware, it's finished. It's final. You have a lot of hard work and a lot of energy that you put there. That's how you make a hardware. But if hardware went wrong, so what we do, we as a company take this for granted. What we do is, for our customers' happiness, we go to the ground. Say, for example, I do have 500 plus clients all over Pan India, and we deliver a lot of products to them. But do you sit with the customer? Maybe you create a product for janitors. Do you sit with them and make them happy at the end of the day? No, we are not doing that, right? Few examples. See, you must have saw advertisement where there are a lot of kids. One kid might be saying into the ear like, hey, this is XYZ. The other kid say, hey, this is ABC. And it went to the analyst. It become zebra crossing, something like that, right? So here, the transmission, the communication path has to be absolutely transparent, number one. The second point, you need to be empathetic and compassionate when you talk to the customers. Say, for example, yesterday I got a call from a CHRO. They said, one of the HRMS that I'm using right now, Diksha, is not scalable. Now, definitely, if a product is not scalable, or your runway that I gave the example, if that is short, if I'm not scalable, definitely customer going to go back to somebody else who probably provide the services, right? And key account manager at that point of time never going to help, because if I asked you to make a huge runway for Boeing 700, I'm not going to design the runway overnight. Point number one. So what I have to do here to design the runway and make everybody happy is that each and every bit, I need to make sure the feedback has to be the ground level feedback, not like, okay, I'm sitting in the AC room and I'm getting a call, hey, everything is fine. Yes, definitely they're gonna say everything is fine, but did you check at the ground level? No. So here comes when you have to go there, sit with the customer, probably the janitor or the HR or the accountant, whatever the services is. I'm talking only about my perspective, which is hardware, devices, electronics, and solutions that we give from last 5 years. Here, what we do is, if we want to make a washroom checklist, or maybe designing an IoT solution, we'll sit with the janitor. We'll sit with the bhaiya and bike. We'll sit with them and we understand what is your requirement. What exactly the outcome that you want? Because right now we have a lot of solutions in the market, but do you think that all of the solutions might justify the client requirement? No. So that's the reason the feedback is important. You have to be empathetic. Say, for example, I call to maybe Dr. Harshada. Hey, Dr. Harshada, how are you? What you doing? It's everything is great. I understand this Corona has given like, okay, let's go digital. But what my perspective, in my opinion, I strongly recommend the ARC triangle has to be there. ARC, affinity, reality, and communication. So the king of everything is communication, communication, communication. That's the beauty. So if I want to communicate a very angry client, so how will I do it? I'll do very straight, simple. Hey, what's up? What's your problem? And let me jot it down. So the throw of your voice, the throw of the articulation in your communication has to be so powerful, it should touch the heart. And that's very important. You should understand, you empathize with the customer. Oh my God, I made a mistake. I'm not going to do that again, but your problem is something that I'm going to deliver very short. So this kind of compassion and the deliver before the date. So the delivery, everybody says, a lot of promises. Oh my God, I do this, but how many deliveries we make sure and make a checklist that everything went before time? So that's question number one. Plus, if we do have products and services and lot many things, we always have to make sure what is my after sales service support. After sales support or after sales service is going good or is not going really good, because that after sales support analysis or forecast will help you analyze the customer pretty well. That what's happening where, because like I said, if you have a small runway, you cannot design a big runway overnight if the condition come or if the requirement might come. So what you do to make the things innovative and sustainable, because if a company doesn't have their own scalable products, they cannot be sustainable. That's very short. They cannot and they can never be. So for that, innovation plays a very important role. And what is innovation is, say, for example, my client asked me, Diksha, you do a lot of things. Can you make a boom barrier sensor? Yes, of course, we can. So how we design is one chip has a lot of plug and play. Like you have a supercomputer, our Apple computer, you have plug and plays. You have your USB, you have your soundtrack, you have everything here. What we design is one PCB, you just plug and play what you really want. That is when we talk about scalable solution or scalable service as per the customer. Plus, you might have a question that, say, Diksha, people might not need this. Yes, of course, there are questions, but how we make sure they need a product. So to study the need, you have to go to the ground and study what's happening. And it's not overnight wala stuff. It's when you have to sit there, analyze 5 months, 6 months, and keep on delivering the feedbacks to the right department or the right team who actually implement the same, right? At that point of time, slowly, gradually, the feedback can build up your runway where you can actually cater Boeing 700. So that's where it's very important to niche down the communication, to niche down the responsibility to the teams, and make sure that the customer requirements can be picked out pretty well, checked with the customer on the same time, and deliver on time. And communication is something that, you should be empathetic, you should be very polite to customer. Yes, they may sometimes it happens, they may shout, they may be angry, but you have to have a beautiful smile on your face. You have to understand, get into their shoes. People say how to get into their shoes, right? That's one question. Like, okay, everybody say get into the shoes, but how? So the how, answer to the how is, understand if that's same situation happening to you, somebody else is shouting to you, how will you feel? You feel really bad, right? At that point of time, take calm, make the customer pretty calm, right? Ask them a different question, create an ARC triangle. Like I said, ARC triangle is very important. Say, for example, this is my ARC triangle, and some point of time, this relationship is not great. Do you think that this triangle will ever work? This is not a great triangle. So the moment you have a customer, you have a great ARC triangle with the customer, they're never gonna leave. They're never, ever gonna leave. They will be happy. Second point, the last point, I'll not take much time. So the last point is, you have to tell your customers, sit with them, and rather than asking what are your problems, maybe after 5 years you have this in the innovation. The new sensors are coming up, the new things are coming up. Maybe you can patent your own technology, right? Something like that. You can also invite the customer in a great innovation discussion. This way, the customer will never leave you. So these are the things that you can actually try your own, and things gonna work with you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Really great, Diksha. It was really coming from your heart, what we could see.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yes, Irene, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Diksha ma'am. You've been amazing. Thank you so much for taking out the time for us. I know you need to rush, but thank you so much for taking the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but I have two questions.
Are you we're waiting for the question? We are just quickly floating last poll, and then we have a LinkedIn post on our chat box, which we request the audience to click on it, like, share, and comment your perspectives on this entire event. And then we'll be again open to answer Q&A for some time.
Yes, the LinkedIn post link has been sent in the chat box.
It's posted on the chat box.
Yes,
Request you
please
to all
do.
click that, and also subscribe our LinkedIn page.
Yes, please do support us, as we are putting us too much effort into this. Yes, now we would launch the next poll. So what you would see is, what are the outcomes from today's panel discussion that you get? I know it has been a lot of knowledge sharing, and it has been so insightful. So I guess we have learned a lot from today's panel discussion.
Yes. Again, I request team to post a survey form in case anyone has missed out the initial feedback. Maybe they can take it and fill up now. Or just copy it on your laptop and fill it out.
As Diksha ma'am said, feedback is important. So yes, please do fill the feedback forms.
Actually, feedback is a three-way thing. It's motivation, course correction. It's also tools for future appraisal, remuneration, everything.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
so I'm ending the poll in next 3 seconds. So thank you for voting. Yeah. So Irene can just reiterate the results.
Yes. Yes, it's all of the above. Yes, we've got a lot of things to understand today. Tips on how to establish yourself as a key account manager, practices to overcome the challenges, and the holistic overview of the KAM sector. So yes, we've learned a lot today. Thank you so much. Now coming to the questions, Aishwarya, would you go forward with it?
Yes.
Yes, we have some questions. For Diksha Deva ma'am, how can we sustain the learnings in the VUCA world? Also, how could we stay relevant as far as learning is concerned?
So can you repeat the first one? Like VUC, I didn't get you. Yeah, can you repeat the question? Yeah.
how can we sustain the learnings in the VUCA world and also in key account management world, and how could we stay relevant as far as learning is concerned?
Okay, that's a beautiful question. And I really appreciate this question because at least we are putting our brains on it. All right, awesome. So the answer to this question is very straight, simple. Do anything, like you do dance, you do any of the activity, the engagement is very important. The moment one person is engaged to the activity they do, learning will definitely come because you make more mistakes, right? The moment you make more mistakes, you learn a lot of things. Like say, for example, a small kid is running or probably walking, he's definitely going to fall down. And his mama or dad will say, oh, come up. And they ask and they give help to that person or the kid, right? Similarly, make more mistakes. The moment you make more mistakes, you learn everything your own self. At the beginning, say for example, I'm the entrepreneur. Yes, definitely it's difficult for me. Like it's like a baby. Yeah. So any established company, it's easy, but any established company started from zero. So the learning will grow as per the time plus as per the mistake. That's my take and how to stay relevant. Yes, Aishwarya. How to stay relevant? Learn from people like you. There are a lot of individuals I can see here, Richard, Aakaash, Hemant, and many people here. Learn from them. Grow the network, learn from each other, go into the conferences that Dr. Harshada must be doing a great, fantabulous work. So go to the events, learn from there, and probably talk to the customer. Say, for example, I'm into the industry and being a CEO, I have to stay relevant, talk to your customer, what their requirement, what the needs are. And if you're a student, then definitely do a good research on what's happening, and industry research is something that we can go for. Over to you, Aishwarya. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Any other question, Aishwarya?
The questions are for Richard sir and Sudeep Singh sir. For Diksha ma'am, this was the question. For Sudeep sir, we had yet to ask the questions. So the question would be, what are the core competencies of a key account manager in terms of leadership and achieving business revenue?
Okay. So I think the fundamental, as far as the core competency is concerned, is an ability to strike conversations, fruitful conversations, ability to engage, right? And I think, which is very basic, which I think we have been hearing from the time we kind of were there in school, is respect for time. The basic of respect for time. Now that time, which used to be like going to school on time or going to college on time, is like going to on meetings on time, responding to customer queries on time. So these are the very fundamental competencies. Apart from that, it is very important for a person to be aware of what's happening, because information, knowing information, ability to process information is very important. Now, I think with internet, in the age of internet, it is important that business news is to be read by the key account managers or the students who aspire to be key account managers. They need to know the customers all about. It's not about the piece which is where they are dealing with, what kind of investments that have been done, what kind of investments that they have got, what kind of why they are in news for as simple reason, what they are in news for. These help in a lot of what you call as discussions, wherein you don't ask for business, but you actually position your awareness about the customer. That's very important. And the last, somebody who understands the mathematics in terms of revenue, profit, and the cost. Very important, because without that, finally what happens is, when the outcome gets measured in terms of, after all doing all these things, what is that we are earning, how much our costs have gone up, how much of we have been able to make revenue, and has our profits increased, has our wallet share increased, finally it will boil down to mathematics. So I think these are the important things.
Thank you, sir. For Richard, sir, one question which was to be answered. How to gauge effectiveness of key account management performance?
Is that for me?
Yes, by Ankit Rathod.
All right, thanks. Right, so again, we could talk a lot about that, how to launch a key account program. But I think if you look at what really drives success in these kind of programs, the number one factor always is you've got active engagement from the senior management team. So that is the common factor across all highly successful programs. Once you've got senior level engagement, active engagement, you're very, very likely to have success. A lot of companies will talk about having a key account champion, by which they mean a senior manager who can, and that's important, but that doesn't guarantee success in my view. So I think number one, senior management team engagement. Number two, get real clarity about why you're doing it. And that might sound like a statement of the obvious, but a lot of companies embark on these things and they haven't actually understood why they're doing it. In other words, if it's going to be a great success, how do we know? What are we going to see in 12 months' time, in 24 months' time, in 3 years? What exactly do we see? And that will help you to then to recognize what kind of resources, i.e. money, you're going to commit. Because if you're not clear why you're doing it, what you expect to see, it's very, very unlikely that you're going to get the management team across the business fully engaged. Because what tends to happen is in these programs is that there's a huge amount of excitement at the beginning and everyone thinks it's fantastic, right? Everyone thinks it's great. And then there's this terrible realization that it's really hard work. It's really hard. And you've got to try all sorts of new things and make mistakes and get it wrong. And people get put off very, very quickly. And suddenly managers decide it's not worth the time and trouble. And suddenly people are saying, why am I spending all this time doing these things? And people have completely forgotten why we're even doing it, even if they knew in the first place. So this is terribly, terribly important that you've got clarity about why exactly are we doing it? What resources are we actually going to commit? And are we all joined up and committed to do it? So we don't end up in 6 months' time with someone saying, why are we spending all this time and energy doing this? What's the point? So I think that's your start point.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, in addition to what Richard said, I think, so that conceptually what Richard said, I'm completely game with that. But having said that, as we have evolved, the tools have come in. So today, when it happens that it's not about, and somebody in the organization is able to vision, and come as a visionary to say this can be a key account, which is what we need to focus on. It is more about using the tools and come out with the relevant examples. I think the tools are of immense help for key account managers at multiple experience level to use them and come up with the learning.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. I mean, this has been such a winsome talk, especially such great discussions to happen. It's been amazing. It's been fascinating to all of us to understand and learn and engage with you, respected, renowned panelists so much. So yes, thank you so much for taking out the time to get involved with us. And thank you so much. I can't really...
yeah, words are falling short. We really gained
Yes.
a lot of knowledge in this entire series.
Yes, and we understand time is so valuable and we've engaged ourselves so much into it that we spend more and more time talking about it. So I really would now request Janvi Bandivdekar, our student body president, who has been the back support for all of us through the entire series. I would request her to come and give the word of thanks finally.
Thank you, Irene. Good evening, everybody. This was such an insightful discussion. I would like to thank MasterMyLife on behalf of my whole team for giving us this opportunity to execute and host this event. We appreciate all our panelists for taking out their valuable time and enlightening us. I would also like to thank all our participants for making this event highly interactive by their valuable inputs. And of course, last but not the least, my whole team for prompt coordination and teamwork. Thank you so much, everybody. And stay tuned for future events. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you again, all the panelists and the participants. for making this event successful. Thanks for your participation.
And wish you all a belated Dashera as well. I think we are
same here.
Right, so it's just one day.
Yes, we are just one day ahead of festival.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. See you again. Bye.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, same. Bye.